Share. Perfect. Okay, awesome. Good morning, Brown Girls Do Gymnastics. It is early in the morning when we are recording this, so that is why I am saying good morning. And we have a special guest with us. Her name is Jasmine. We're going to probably do that again.
You got it.
Swyningan.
Swyningan.
Swyningan. Oh, goodness.
No
Jasmine
worries.
Swyningan. I had to ask her right before this, and just to make sure that I pronounced it correctly, and I still butchered it just a little bit. But
It's
she
early.
is taking this wonderful time to talk to us about being a brown girl in the sport of gymnastics and how she got into the sport, and to also talk about the HBCU campaign and bringing the sport of gymnastics to HBCUs, which I think is amazing. She is a judge. She is a former collegiate gymnast, and she is a Brown Girls Do Gymnastics board member. So thank you so much for taking this time.
Yeah, thank you. Really excited to be here.
Yeah. I just first wanted to start off and have you talk about your background a little bit. How did you get into the sport of gymnastics? And also, what was the journey of becoming a judge?
Sure. Yeah. So my gymnastics origin story is probably very similar to a lot of kids. I was jumping off of everything in the house. Like jumping off of my bed when I was really teeny tiny, jumping off of my couch. My dad's reflexes got really good, but then, I continued to grow. So he's like, I don't want to have to keep like reaching out and grabbing this child by their shirt when she's like 9 or 10 years old. So my parents lived about a mile away from a local gymnastics club. So they just signed me up for recreation classes and I loved it. They also had me do other sports too, but gymnastics was really the one where I was like, this is where my passion is. This is what I wanted to do. So I started competing when I was 8 years old and competed all the way through level 10 and then competed in college at Iowa State for a few years.
Oh.
Yeah. And then when I was done competing gymnastics, I realized that I still wanted to be part of the sport. But I was also in graduate school and I just had, like part-time jobs. And so being able to coach was something that wasn't really, going to fit with my schedule, but judging was. And, I had already just had a real curiosity for the rules. That sounds kind of nerdy, but like I would open up the rule book and just read it myself. So it was just a pretty natural transition for me to become a judge. And I've been judging for about 10 years now.
Oh my goodness. And you said you would just grab the judging book and read it yourself. Did you? Oh, wow.
I know when I was like going through the optional levels myself, I had coaches who really valued transparency and they wanted me to understand why did I have to do that turn on beam that way? Why did I have to do these skills on floor? So we just opened up the rule book and we read it together.
Wait, that's actually super helpful.
Mhm.
I had coaches that kind of explained, but never, you know what I'm saying? I feel like
Yeah,
sometimes they just assume that, oh, they don't really care to know.
right,
I'll just let them know what they need and then they'll just go
right.
about it. But I think that's
Yeah,
really cool that you had really transparent coaches that were like, hey,
yeah,
this is what you're doing and this is why. And here's the details as to why you need these skills and you need to
hmm
do them this certain way. And this is why you're moving up to the next level. And here's the next step and the challenge that will be ahead of you. Are you ready? Are you excited? Let's go up for this challenge kind of thing. That is super
yeah.
cool.
Thanks. Yeah,
Um,
I totally agree.
that's amazing. And then um, clearly gymnastics is a super challenging sport. Throughout the whole process, you mentioned you went to collegiate gymnastics a little bit. What would you say was the hardest struggle for you from the transition from high school to college?
It's wild, man. I don't like everything. Everything is different, right? Like you're living in a new place. The food is different. The people are different. Your coaches are different. Your professors are different. Like everything is just, it's different. And so I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is, it's a pretty big city. And then going to school at Iowa State is in a pretty small town where like the school is really, that's it. That is Ames, Iowa is the school. And so I think just the fact that I felt like I was in a really remote space, and it
Mhm.
felt really different. Like, even though I was only about 4 hours away from my home, like,
Oh, that's
just the
nice.
overall, yeah, yeah. So like I could go home on the weekends sometimes, and my
Mhm.
parents would come and visit me and stuff. So that was all good. But the culture was just so different from being in like a bigger city to a small town, and then just kind of having to navigate that with like I said, new school, new people, new home, new food,
Everything.
new everything. Yeah, it was a lot. Having 6 a.m. workouts. Like in club, I didn't have to, I would go to school and then I'd work out in the
The 6
afternoon at
a.m.
evening.
workouts, you would start at 6 a.m.? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
we would have like in college, like cardio practices. Yeah, at 6 a.m.
Oh, goodness. I think that's the first time I've heard that. Is that still a thing? Because I know
I think
that,
so.
oh, that's insane. Because our practices, because I mean, that was a big transition for me too. I had,
Yeah.
because most gymnasts that do the level 10 route usually just practice in the afternoon to night.
Hmm.
So my journey was very similar to yours and how I got into the sport and, like me progressing to the level. But when it came to transitioning to college, our practices were at least at 8 a.m. Like maybe treatment
Oh,
times were like 6:15 to 6:30. Like that was
nice.
asking a lot, it seemed like. So I'm not much of a morning person. I have been getting up a lot earlier now because I just feel like I get more done throughout the day.
Oh, yeah.
But 6 a.m. start time. So you're
Yeah.
getting up at
Cardio.
5 or like 5:30 maybe for some cardio.
Well, like we would
Eh.
we'd go to sleep in the clothes we would wake up to work out in, and then just like roll out of bed at about 5:45 and run into the car and go.
Oh, goodness.
It was
Also,
crazy. Yeah.
I went to college, 3 hours away from my hometown
Oh,
too, because I
nice.
wanted to be, close enough but far enough.
Yeah.
My dad
Yep.
still seemed like I was like, easy
Good
access. So
balance.
he would visit me probably every weekend. He was struggling to be an empty nester, but um
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's a crazy transition. And then I also wanted to ask you about judging, like
Yeah.
because you had already really educated yourself, or you were already super interested in it and kind of knew the ins and outs a little bit more than most gymnasts probably do when they want to go into judging, or maybe
Mhm.
not. Maybe a lot of gymnasts that want to go into judging were also had that interest that you did. What was that transition like, and did you, because I know you have to study and you have to take these tests too, but was the
Mhm.
studying process a little easier for you, or were there like things that you did not know or that you learned about, or did something shock you about the process to get into judging? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, good question. So, I started judging at the compulsory levels 4 and 5. So you have to take tests and kind of progress up. So
Mhm.
it's a rating or like a certification level, and it's based off of how far up you're certified to judge. So you start at the compulsory levels, and then you can go up through level 8, and then level 9, and level 10, and then college and international after that. So, when I was in my early 20s, I had completely forgotten the compulsory rules, right? So,
Oh yeah.
like picking up that book, I was like, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, the hand has to be there on floor, right? So I think that was like I had just kind of forgotten all of those rules, but it wasn't too difficult to pick up after that. We have to take a multiple choice test. And the test
Oh
is great to test your knowledge of it, but it doesn't really help you sit in the chair and judge live gymnastics, right? Like you're not,
yeah,
like
that
it's
makes
a
sense.
different thing. So like it tests you do know the rules if someone were to ask you about the rules, but then like sitting in the chair and like judging a bar routine with all of the symbols and like getting the deductions down at the same time, like that totally different skill sets. So I think, once I had passed my tests, I was like, okay, cool, like I'm good to go. And then they put me in the chair and I'm like,
You're like,
this is totally different.
what is
So
going on?
exactly. Yeah. I'm like, she did that really fast. And my multiple choice test didn't prepare for me to do that, for to do
Right.
it really fast. So it was something that like, it's a skill that you just continue to build on. And I learned that really quickly that like, it's not just the test, right? It's the practical application all the time. Um, I will say it was kind of weird the first few meets to sit next to people who judged me when I was an athlete.
Oh, interesting. I always
Yeah.
wondered about that because, you sometimes maybe would work with judges that
Mhm.
judged you in college or even in club, because that's what I'm going through right now. I'm doing camps, and, there's this judging section, and,
Yeah.
I'm working with this judge that judged me. And like when she would talk about, oh, you grew so much in your 4 years, or, differently things like that. But when you're
Yeah.
actually working in the same field, I bet that is a different transition. You're like, so this is what it's like. What did you think about me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah. And what's really fun is like they remember. Like you said, JaNay, like they remembered you in college. I have judges who I sit next to now who remembered me when I was like 10 years old.
That's
And they're like,
crazy.
I know.
That's so
And
very
so
cool.
yeah, yeah. And it's just not something that I'd thought about when I was a gymnast, that the judges also cared a lot about me and about my
Mhm.
growth and were, like invested and wanted to see me progress throughout the sport. So that was something that as I've become a judge and gotten to know these people, I'm like, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
you do care. And also like I care a lot too. So it's great that we're,
Yeah.
like all together in this. Yeah.
I think that's a really cool message to put out there, that judges do care about
Mhm.
you, because especially when you're younger, you just look at them as just scary people, and
Totally.
they're looking for what's wrong in your routine. You know what I'm saying? Or that's where your mind could go, but they want you to do well, especially when there are the moments that maybe you like fall down and you like hurt yourself. The judges will get up and actually help you out and maybe figure out a way, like, are you able to finish the routine, or do we
Right.
need to stop, like what do you need, kind of thing. And that's really helpful, I think, for young girls to know as well, or just young athletes to know, that the judges
Yeah.
that are judging you do care. They
Mhm.
don't hate you if anyone tells themselves that. You know what I'm saying? Because there's this certain level of nerves that come with competition, and a lot of it, I think, does come from the judges, because you can have the mock meets and stuff, and you'll have your coaches judge you, and it's like, okay, kind of. But when you get to the real competition, it's like the like fear, kind of just, oh goodness, like this is it, like I have real judges judging me, I don't know how this is
Right.
gonna go. So that's really cool to hear that you guys actually
Yeah.
do care. And I don't know, maybe
Oh yeah.
and it's just really cool, especially when you get older, and you don't realize that until you get older, until you have those
Mhm.
conversations with the judges that judged you when you were younger, and you're like, wait, you're actually really cool, and actually
Yeah.
a person.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Were there any? Because I always wonder this about judges, because you're kind of just in that role of authority, like you're the one that's kind of like, they're the ones that are taking control of the event, but you're the one that has essentially like the power. You're the one that's
Mhm.
judging. Are there any inspiring moments that you have as a judge? Like, I don't know if it's in meets, or I kind of just am curious about that, because you see so many gymnasts throughout your career, and I don't know, I'm kind of curious if there are any moments where you are just super inspired by an athlete or a coach, or I'm not really sure actually.
Yeah, I mean, all the time. One thing that I really like about judging throughout an entire season is you
Mhm.
get to kind of know the athletes, right? I'm not judging the same clubs at every single meet, but
Right.
I'm judging, I'll see them a couple of times throughout the season. Um, and I really think about like your level 4 or your Excel Gold athletes who maybe are doing their cartwheel for the first time at that first meet on beam, right? I love judging beam because I love to just kind of give off a very calming vibe. Beam is really stressful. It's really scary. And, like me standing there staring at you or sitting there staring at you in my blue blazer is not making you feel any better. So
Mhm.
I like to just try and like go there and just like be a very calm, happy spirit when I'm judging, when I'm at meets.
Mhm.
So oftentimes I'll see kids who will compete their first couple meets and maybe they'll fall on their cartwheel. They're really upset. And I'll just see their coaches talking to them like, you'll get it next time. This is what you need to do. And maybe they're having trouble with that dang cartwheel all season. And then by the time we get to state, they stick it and they're pumped.
Yeah.
And like I get goosebumps because I'll remember that kid, right? When I'm like, I know you care about this. I care about this too. I know you can stick that cartwheel. And then they do. And I'm just like, it's hard for me to not just like go, oh,
Right. I
right
bet.
during the session. But I am like truly excited whenever I get to see the things where kids are maybe they're scared, right? Maybe they just skipped the cartwheel early on in the season, but then they like worked through their mental block, and then they did it, right? Like those are the moments where I'm just really pumped. And then I see the coaches' faces. I get to see that and just
Mhm.
how thrilled they are. Sometimes I can like peek back into the audience and find the parents, and the parents are like losing their minds, so excited. So it's just like those moments are really, really fun for me. And I try to celebrate in that with them too, right? Like
Mhm.
good, bad, or otherwise. I always make sure to smile at the kids when they finish their routine because I know that I'm the first person that they look at when they're done
That's
with their routine. So I'm just
yeah.
like, I am so proud of you. Like you got up there and you did that thing and you tried really hard and you go, like you do it. So
Yeah. And I
yeah,
thank you for reminding me because when you say, I like to give off that calming vibe, and I forget that in club, you introduce yourself to the judges. You walk up in front of the judges and salute them, right?
yeah,
You don't do that in college. And I completely
right,
forgot about that process in club that you actually do go up and line up in front of the judges and they give you a little pep talk or, just introduce
yeah,
themselves or say a couple words and say good luck. And I think that is a really good moment for you to say, hey, I am not scary. Kind of just what we talked about a
right.
second ago. Like, I'm not scary.
Mhm.
I want you to do well. Or and you mentioned that, you've seen these kids, multiple times and maybe they'll recognize you, but you recognize them and you're like, hey, good luck. You guys
Mhm.
got this kind of thing.
Yep.
Because that totally isn't a thing in college. And when you mentioned that, I was like, wait, yeah, you do have to salute the judges in club. That's
Yeah.
something that you totally have to do. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And I actually never thought about that perspective. And I was really excited to hear your perspective of
Yeah.
judge
Yeah.
because, um, you always hear, like the gymnast perspective of, competing, but, like what's the judge's perspective when you see, the same athlete,
Yeah.
maybe not over and over, but, enough times to see the growth and
Yeah.
see the fears that are um, being taken care of or just, like anything that you see, you're like, I love being in this position. And it seems like you
Oh,
are.
yeah.
It seems like you do love judging. And it's a really cool thing to hear because I don't know. I just think it's such a cool sport. And then you get to just watch
Yeah.
gymnastics all day.
Oh, yeah, that's the best part.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so well, now I kind of want to get a judge's perspective of this HBCU campaign because
Mhm.
as we know that college is so different from club. I think it's more fun. It gives you more freedom. You in college, we mentioned it's such a different shift in life, but I think it's a time where you're learning to become your own person. You're becoming independent. It's a big growing experience for sure, but I
Mhm.
think it's also just a really fun time for you to really come into your own. And I think um there was a gymnast. She went to Washington, and she was like my big sister because she went to my club gym. And I remember she took me out to lunch before I left for college. And she said, listen, JaNay, I know you're going for school, but really college is about you, becoming independent and becoming your own person. And I said, no. I'm going for school and I'm going for gym. Like I don't understand what else there is to it. And so, and I mean, obviously as like an 18-year-old, I didn't really get it, but that's truly what happens because you're not with your parents, you're not at home. You have to wake up on your own. There's like this like idea of like time management that you really have to take control of yourself, like
Mhm.
yourself. And um it really didn't click until maybe like after freshman year, sophomore year. And I was like, oh yeah, like I'm really becoming my own person right now. Danielle was right. Like she knew what she was talking about. Danielle
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, she was amazing. But I just kind of wanted to ask because I know obviously college is more fun and it's energetic and it's just electric in the arena. Um,
Mhm.
but with HBCUs, there's just this different vision I have. It's the same electric and exciting feel. that I get, but there's just going to be something more special about it. And I just wanted to ask, like, what do you think is going to be the positive impact of bringing the sport of gymnastics to HBCUs and really showing our community how special this sport is? And not only that, giving more opportunities to girls that love the sport.
Yeah. So, I think I said earlier, I grew up in Minnesota. I currently live in Minnesota.
I totally forgot to ask. I was like, are we still in
Oh,
Minnesota?
you're
Are
fine.
we in
Yeah,
Iowa?
yep, I'm still there. Yeah, so I lived in Chicago for 6 years after I graduated college, and then I moved
Mhm.
back. Loved Chicago, and
Also love Chicago.
it's
There's
amazing.
something about the East Coast because I'm Cali
Yeah,
girl, born and raised, but something about Chicago and New York, like these, just the vibe there is so different. But I feel like
yeah.
I could make it work. You know what I'm saying? Like
Oh,
obviously,
yeah, yeah,
like it's so amazing. But yeah, okay,
yeah,
cool.
for sure. Yeah, so, when I was in Chicago, I saw brown and black people everywhere, which, growing up in Minnesota and then going to school in Iowa, that was not the case,
Mm,
right? Like, the brown and black people were in the sports arena, right? Like, that's where they were. Um, and that's not because brown and black people can't do everything really, really well.
yeah.
It's just that they're not in the Midwest. That's it. So, and I think about that a lot. When I was competing in Minnesota, my dad was oftentimes the only black man who was there at the whole meet, right? And now that I'm judging in Minnesota again, I judged a meet over this past weekend, and like every single meet I saw at least 15 black dads there,
And you're like,
every meet. I was like, that's a huge jump, right?
you're like,
And I'm not even like going in the audience, like counting, tallying up, right? But I'm just like, there's a lot more brown and black people here. And
mhm.
like I'm seeing a lot of brown and black athletes. Um, so to kind of bring it back to your question, like the sport is not, it's not a white only sport, right?
Mhm.
Like this is a sport for everybody, and so we need to bring the sport to every space, and
Yeah.
having it at HBCUs just provides that additional space for all of our athletes to thrive. um, for the athletes who want to attend an HBCU, this gives them another opportunity to follow their
So,
passion in sport
mhm.
and to follow their passion in school, and be at an HBCU and have that really unique experience that so many of us, would have to make a decision, yes or no. Like I either get the gymnastics or I get the HBCU. This would do both of that. From a judging perspective, I will say that we love judging college, and we love the opportunity to work and to sit and watch gymnastics. So the more gymnastics there is, the happier we are. So we would love it. It would be amazing to have NCAA gymnastics at HBCUs, and we judges would love to go and support that and continue to advocate for that too.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
am just I always tell people this, like, UCLA or not, I will be at the first HBCU gymnastics meet
Oh,
regardless, and I will be
yep.
front row just cheering my head off because
For
I've
sure.
always, because like also me growing up, I grew up in just like an area where there just predominantly is just like not a lot of black and brown people either. So man, we
Right.
just really had the same like kind of experience like
Yeah, yeah.
like I would really only be around unless unless it was the holidays. That's when I would get around my family and be around like
Mhm.
the people that looks like me. But when it came to school and it just I was called Oreo all the time. You know what I'm saying? So that's just like
Yeah.
that was my background, and
Mhm.
so I didn't really know about HBCUs until I got to college. Like I kind of maybe knew about them because I really always loved watching like Destiny's Child and stuff, and maybe there was like some like themed like HBCU themed performances that I would watch, but I didn't
Yeah.
really know about the culture until I got to college and I started going to African Student Union things, and I was like,
Mhm.
dang, if they had a gymnastics team,
Right.
I might have like, considered that. Because it's just something about like I really want to go to a football game or a yard show or something, because just the dance team or the
Mhm.
girls that are like on the track, like, really doing their thing, just going full out, just performing is so fun to watch. And
Yeah.
it is so cool. Like we just are so talented in so many ways. So I'm excited to, and also I just think that gymnastics in general needs more opportunities, because they're, um, even for men's gymnastics too, like, I mean, women's, like I feel like people, only really watch it in the Olympics, right? But even for men's gymnastics, the programs have been getting cut since the 80s. And I think there are maybe 15 schools that have men's gymnastics programs, but then like a couple of them are club teams. So I just think that, you know, um, our sport can really use like the opportunity to grow and not just be dwindled down to the
Mhm.
a few select schools. So I think that's really cool and important.
Yeah.
Okay, well, last question.
Yeah.
I always like to ask, because people always have different experiences, life experiences, and when growing up as a person of color just in the sport of gymnastics. But I kind of like to just ask a more universal question of, what advice would you give a young athlete today that is struggling with confidence, or maybe is struggling with where am I supposed to be? I don't know if this is the route I'm supposed to go. This is really difficult, or just any piece of advice that helped you, because I think that everybody can benefit from, like I feel like we all, as people, I think we all are constantly growing and evolving, and we can all benefit from each other's lessons that we learned. And I just, from you being a judge and, having the background that you do, what would you say to young kids today, athlete or non-athlete, actually, too?
Yeah, yeah. Kind of two things. Find your people and lean on your people, right? Yeah.
Huge.
Yes, yes, yes. Find your people.
Mhm.
They're out there, and sometimes they change throughout your life, and that's okay. But find your people. Find the people who you know that you can just like be exactly who you are around them, and they will love you for it. They will love you more for it. Find those people. Um, and kind of with that, I would also say continue to ask questions.
Mhm.
Ask yourself questions as you're doing whatever, like gymnastics, for example. Ask yourself, like, do I like this? What do I like about it? What
Mhm.
don't I like about it? What do I have control over? And then also lean on your people, lean on your coaches, and ask questions to the coaches too, because that was something that was also part of why my coaches just opened up that book, is because I asked a ton of questions,
Yeah.
because I really wanted to understand like my trajectory in the sport, and
Mhm.
I wanted to understand, like, why do I have to work on this thing that I don't like working on? What, like, why do I have to do it?
Yeah. Why do
Oh,
I
it's right there, it's in the book. Okay,
have
okay, I'll do this thing that I don't like so that I can do 35 of this thing that I really do like, right? But I think just like continuing to ask questions and be curious about the world around you, that can lead to really good change, that can lead to really good understanding. And it can also help you find your people. so,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, that's what I got.
It's important. And I love that you said that first one, because um, that's always what I would say to young girls too, like lean on your support system,
For
because
sure.
there are going to be people that are going to be naysayers and will tell you just more negative things. Like that's just
Yep.
life, unfortunately. So always
Right.
lean on your support system. So I'm just, for someone else to just like, that's, a little, that's been through a little more life than me. It's like, okay, that's some good advice. Like I think,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's a good tool, because it's important.
Absolutely.
Um, oh my,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, this was an amazing conversation. I loved getting
Thank you.
your judging perspective and learning about your background a little bit, and just also really talking about the importance of, like you mentioned, bringing the sport of gymnastics, it's for everybody. And I think that's a really important message. And I love that you said that because I think it can be a really inclusive thing. So
Yes.
yeah, thank you for taking this time. It was so nice to meet you, and I can't wait to have more
Certainly.
conversations because you are amazing.
Oh, so are you. Thank you so much for this. This is super fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this was super fun. Oh my goodness, thank you for getting me up early in the morning. I'm about
All
to
right. Start your
go work
day.
out now. I'm so excited. I'm like awake, you know what I'm saying? Because you know when you get up
Yeah.
early and you're like, I'm gonna go back to sleep and get some more. But once you're up and like doing things, you're like, I'm inspired.
You're ready to go. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, have a great rest of your day. Thank you to
You
all
too.
who has watched. I hope you learned something new. And I just also want to emphasize the importance of journaling. So if you ever watch these, definitely break out a journal and write down what resonated with you because if you're forgetful like me, I like to write things down. So I just think that's an important little tool.
Good
But
advice.
we will see you guys next time on our next gym talk. As I mentioned in the first episode, we have a more structured feel to this. We're not on IGTV anymore, so we are really getting down to business this time. So this is exciting. But thank you, Jasmine. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon because we're definitely going to talk again. This was
Sounds good. Part two.
part two.
Yeah. Thank you.
All righty.
Bye.
Bye.